Well, I never thought I'd see the day again where I sit on my floor and make a YouTube video. Um, you're probably asking yourself, Dustin, how the hell did we get from like you uploading Minecraft content for years to you sitting on your floor in front of a Batman bookshelf for kids filled with books? And to that, I have no answer other than I'm old now, I guess, and I just like old people things, like books. I don't know. I remember I used to think that like reading was for old people when I was little, like only old people read. And then I really got into reading at one point in time in like high school, and then I stopped literally until last year. So like I just started reading again after almost 20 years. So yeah, I like books, and today I'm going to show you my very small but I think pretty cool book collection. There's all kinds of stuff in here, and we're going to start with the ones that I have on the floor first because they are in the process of being read, and I just didn't want to stick them on the shelf and lose my spot in the books that my wife and I are reading just to pull them off the shelf. You know? Stupid. First up, my current read, Cujo by Stephen King. I am a big Stephen King fan. I read it a long, long, long time ago, and then I reread it last year. And yeah, I've just been on this Stephen King kick like crazy. I've always had a fascination with his movies and with his books and just him in general. I don't know. So something just I've always gravitated towards Stephen King. I think it's the horror side of things. You'll see with a lot of these books, I kind of like a certain type of book. But yeah, I don't know where to sit because I want you to see these too. But we're reading Cujo. There's also other books in this house. I just grabbed the ones that I picked, not the ones that my wife has picked, because they're completely different from my style of book, and they're her books. So, yeah. Next up, Middle Tide. This is what my wife is currently reading. I read this book 2 books ago, or I think I don't know. I've either read 2 or 3 books now. I think 2 since I finished this book, and my wife is now reading it, and she is like just over halfway. This book was absolutely awesome. It was not how I expected it. When I read the synopsis, I was like, oh, this is like Alan Wake, which was that really cool game where, like, I don't know, it just kind of, because the guy in here is a writer and there was a murder and the murder was like ripped, like it was like basically like scene for scene that this guy wrote in his book years prior to this murder happening, and there's a court case, and it's just a whole thing. And it's a very good book, and this was Sarah Crouch. This was her debut novel, of all things, and this book was fantastic. I really liked it. My wife is really liking it so far, too. Another book that I read last year that my wife is going to read after Middle Tide, and that is The Only One Left by Riley Sager. My wife and I were in a Walmart, I don't want to say in a Walmart. We were in our local Walmart, and I was looking at books, and there was 2. You'll see the other one on the shelf. There was 2 that I picked up because they both looked interesting. I read this, and let me tell you, Riley Sager is like the M. Night Shyamalan of books. Like, this book just when you thought like you had it figured out, you didn't. Not even close. This book was really good. Riley Sager actually just put out a new book. It literally just came out, I think, like this week or like last week, which I'll get to eventually. But like my TBR is absolutely massive, and I'm not trying to add any more books to it unless it's a book I absolutely want. There is a book coming out in August that I am getting because I have the other 2 that I'm going to talk about. So I guess we're going to go through, I'm kind of going to go through the books that are just kind of on top before I get into the shelf because, again, this is a bookshelf for children, and it has Batman on the side. You can't see it, but I'm a 30-year-old child. Leave me alone. I like Batman. So we're going to go ahead and start up here. This book, this was just randomly sent to me by Trav one day. An Amazon package showed up, and it was this book. And I was not expecting it. He didn't tell me, like, until it came. He was like, hey, did you get that package from Amazon? And I was like, yeah, what the heck? And he was like, I'd listened to the audiobook, and he was like, I feel like you are going to enjoy this book. He's like, I know you like physical copies of things. And this is Your Book by Seth Rogen. Yes, Seth Rogen. The Seth Rogen you think it is. He wrote a book, and it kind of talks about his life growing up and kind of like the inspiration for all the movies that he was in and stuff. And this book was hilarious, and every time that I like would read it, I read it in my head like in his voice. Just a really really good book, and it makes you love Seth Rogen that much more. I feel like he's a guy that you just can't hate, and then reading his book just makes it that much better. Super super good book, especially if you're into movies, especially comedies. I mean, like I said, it's Seth freaking Rogen. It talks about like the whole thing when they were making the interview, like all the crazy stuff that happened. It was insane. Like, and he covers it all in this book. It's not a very long read, but it's just, this book is just so good. And I'm probably gonna end up picking it up and reading it again, just because like it's amazing. Seth Rogen, hilarious guy. All right, so I was talking about a book coming out in August, and I'm really excited for it. This is an author that I found on TikTok, and I first found out about this book because he said it was being made into a movie. And I got the book, and I fell in love with it, and then I got the second book, and then he made a third book, and I'm really happy that it's coming out, and that is Clown in a Cornfield by Adam Caesar. It's considered a YA, like a young adult horror. I will say that even though it's like YA, you would think that like it wouldn't be like good or like super graphic in any sort of way. This book is it's good. It's really good. If you are a fan of the Scream franchise and just like slashers in general, incredible stuff by Adam Caesar. And I like that book so much that when there was a second one, I got it. Clown in a Cornfield 2, Friendo Lives. Frendo's the clown that is has like this, basically this cult following, and because he was like this town's mascot for years, and he hurts people very badly, very graphically. There's multiple Frendos, I will say, but it's crazy. Like, I highly recommend picking up Adam Caesar's books. I'm so excited for Clown in a Cornfield 3 to come out. All right, more books on top here. All right, this is a book that actually really helped me, and probably a book, again, that I'm going to read again. And this is a book by Dan Reichert. If you don't know who Dan Reichert is, he has worked for Giant Bomb. He wrote for Game Informer. He's set 2 Guinness World Records and like all kinds of stuff. Just like very big in kind of like the gaming space and being a gamer and growing up a gamer. I found him on YouTube. And of all things, he did a live stream of him building the Lego Mario like NES set, and I watched the whole like 5 hour. There was like multiple 5-hour parts, and I watched all of them. And he was just very open and very honest, and like just a super cool guy. And I like was checking out his merch, and I saw that he had a book, and it's called Anxiety as an Ally: How I Turned My Worried Mind into My Best Friend. And he just really kind of opens up because he's an older guy. He found out he had anxiety when he was 18 years old, and like, you know, back when people really didn't understand like what anxiety was, you know, and like how it is to struggle with anxiety and to cope with anxiety, and how to like kind of use it as like a superpower almost. And I am somebody that has terrible anxiety. I've gotten way better, but I still have times, you know, to this day, being in my 30s, and I've had anxiety attacks so bad in the past that I've like blacked out and had like seizure-like activity. It's very serious stuff, and I feel like people don't take it very seriously, especially like the older generation. So this was just a book that kind of really makes you feel like you're not alone. Highly recommend. Great book. This is the book that got me back into reading. So last year, my wife and I flew to Las Vegas for her job, and she was like, "It's a really long flight. I feel like we should get books and read on the plane." And this is a book by Joe Hill, who's actually Owen King. This is Stephen King's son, and it's kind of crazy. You know, he had things to do with like Nosferatu, Lock and Key, In the Tall Grass. Like, he's done all kinds of stuff. Horns was another good one that I've heard about. I've not read it, but like it gets a lot of praise. And I love this movie. And I thought when I picked this up, it says Joe Hill, The Black Phone, like, and it has like the cover. I'm like, oh, like this is the story about the movie. It's not. It's a bunch of short stories, and the Black Phone short story is actually really short. I don't know how many are in here. To be completely honest with you, there was only really a couple that I still like remember that really stood out to me. I'm not the biggest fan of like short stories, but I don't know. This book, I did read it, and this is what got me back into reading again, was Joe Hill's The Black Phone stories. So there's that. And then right here we have The Silent Patient. This is a book that just seemed really interesting to me. I've not read anything by this Alex Michaelitis. I don't know how to say his name. I don't want to butcher it, so I'm probably not going to. I already said it once. I lied to you. But yeah, The Silent Patient. This just seemed like a really interesting concept. I have not read it yet, obviously. Basically, this woman's husband returns home from work one day and she shoots him in the face 5 times. And then just goes completely silent and just doesn't tell anybody, and nobody can figure out why she did it. I'm sure it tells you. I haven't read it yet, but The Silent Patient. I have another book by him that is my wife's pile, called The Fury, which I guess was really good. So that's something that she'll probably read eventually. But I have this one. All right, I don't think I have any more like big books up here. These are like graphic novels, which we'll get to, because I do have some graphic novels. Let's go ahead and start pulling books off the shelf. So the first one here, this was sent to me by somebody. I have no idea who sent this. This is a leather-bound, like silver gilded paged Stephen King 3-story collection. This has Carrie, The Shining, and Salem's Lot in it. That's awesome. I don't think I'm ever going to read this. The pages are like really thin, and I think this looks really cool on a shelf. But I still, to this day, have no idea who sent this. It just randomly showed up one day, and nobody's ever like admitted to it. But yeah, like the pages just feel like real thin, and I don't know. I would love to read Carrie eventually, but I'll probably just pick that book up individually. But as of right now, this is just, it looks really cool on the shelf, and I like it a lot. So there's that. Next up, we have It by Stephen King. Obviously, this book is a classic. It is absolutely massive. I read this book last October, and I think it just took me, because I was reading it at home when I could and at work, I think it took me like a little over a month to finish this, which wasn't too bad. But yeah, It by Stephen King. And then we have Insomnia by Stephen King. From what I gathered, this is not a horror novel, but basically like, this guy gets insomnia and he can't sleep, and he starts seeing like auras around people, and he judges, like he can kind of judge like the person's character by like the aura they give off. I don't know. It seems interesting. I don't know how I'm going to feel about it. Eventually I'm going to get to it, but it's probably not going to be this year, to be completely honest with you. But I probably will read it next year. Next up, this is a book that I'm going to read this year, and that is Needful Things by Stephen King. I have the 4K, and I watched it, and now I really want to read the book. I have this thing where if I watch a Stephen King movie, I have to read the book, or if I read the book, then I have to watch the movie. And I got the movie before I got the book, but this is definitely on my list to be read by the end of this year. And it's another big one. It's like 700-something pages. Then we have Desperation by Stephen King. I'm just going to kind of start going through these now. We have The Regulators by Richard Bachman, a.k.a. Stephen King. We have Holly, which I loved last year and absolutely loved, and that made me want to get the Bill Hodges trilogy, which I only have book 1, but I'm going to read that and eventually get the other 2. This book was phenomenal. He dropped this last year. And then we have his newest book, and this is a collection of short stories, and that is You Like It Darker. I love this cover. It's so good. And then we have Dolores Claiborne by Stephen King. Here is book 1 in the Bill Hodges trilogy, Mr. Mercedes. There's a show on either Paramount or Peacock that I plan on watching. 11/22/63 by Stephen King. This is also on my list to read this year, along with Needful Things. So that's going to be exciting. And then here we have Thinner, another movie that I own. I read the book first and then watched the movie. This is Stephen King writing as Richard Bachman. This is a really good book. Highly recommend. And then we have Firestarter by Stephen King. And this really cool, like, rainbow spine effect when you put them together. This was a box set my wife got me. Salem's Lot by Stephen King. I have not read any of these. Again, I'll mention what I have read and what I haven't. Which, surprise, there's a lot that I haven't. The Shining by Stephen King. And Dr. Sleep by Stephen King. And then here we have a book that I read by him. This was the book that got me back into Stephen King, and I read it last year, and that was Pet Sematary. Phenomenal. Phenomenal book. This is very much a pain to put back in here. A book that I finished this year by Stephen King, which was A Beefy Boy, The Stand. This book was incredible. This is definitely a book that I'll probably read again. Maybe not next year, unless I felt like it, but this is a book that just, it pulls you in and it doesn't let go for 1,100 pages. So that is a big one. If you like big books, and you cannot lie, that book is for you. I'm sorry that was such a cheesy joke. This is from a person on TikTok. He wrote a book, Andrew Valenza, called Empire of the Void. It is like a 1950s space adventure book and super good. He actually put out a new one called The Lost World of the Void, I believe is what it's called. It's already out. I haven't picked it up yet, but I'm going to get to it eventually. It is the sequel to this book here. And this book was really good for his first book. I really liked it. And then we have Five Nights at Freddy's, the official movie novelization. I love the movie, so did my son, and I actually really like this book. I read it this year. Okay, yeah, we're just going to do that. We have Nosferatu by Joe Hill. The Devil Crept In by Anya Alborn. I heard that she is like the female Stephen King, so I'm super excited to get into this book. Somebody who quickly became my favorite author, and my wife, because my wife got me one of his books for Christmas, and I read it this year, and that is Nick Cutter. This is The Troop, or The Deep by Nick Cutter, I'm sorry. Really good book. Made me feel super claustrophobic, because it takes place at the bottom of the ocean. The Troop, which is the book my wife got me that got me into Nick Cutter. Really good book. Little Heaven by Nick Cutter. Fantastic. Really crazy. Nick Cutter is like very over the top. He's definitely not for everybody. But this is his newest book. I actually just finished this not too long ago, and that is The Handyman Method by Nick Cutter and Andrew F. Sullivan. They co-wrote it. If you want a book that's going to make you feel uncomfortable, that both my wife and I read this year, Tender is the Flesh. It is not a long book, but holy crap, there is so much packed into this book. It just, ugh. But the ending is kind of like, what the hell? Dawn of the Dead. Obviously, I have to read it. This is by George A. Romero and Susanna Sparrow. I mean, a classic movie. The book has to be good. You Won't Believe Me. This is a book that I read, I think last year, and my wife read it this year. And very good book. A twist you would not see coming. And then we have a book that I chose that I'll read. It's from Book of the Month. And that is Listen for the Lie. A book this year, or that I read this year, that made me love this movie even more, and that is The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty. If you love the movie, read the book because it is the movie on steroids. Let me tell you, like insane stuff that they can't put in a movie happens in this book. And then I have this book down here. This is Slobberknocker by Jim Ross. I actually met him at a Comic-Con in Pittsburgh. Super nice guy. My favorite announcer in all of like wrestling history. I used to watch it all the time as a kid. He was my favorite. I even got his autograph in it. So that's really cool to have. I have a lot of friends that are into wrestling that are super jealous of that. Another book of the month book that I picked. I actually canceled my subscription, so I don't have any more of those coming because I don't have space or enough time to read all the books that I was getting. And that is Darling Girls. My wife kind of picked this one too. And my wife and my baby are staring at me. I am almost done. And then this is a book I picked because it was kind of like Indiana Jones is the way it was described. And it's called What the River Knows. I don't know. Pretty cover. And then a book that I finished this year, The Shadows by Alex North. This was a good read. Again, had a twist in it that I just wasn't expecting. The good thing about Book of the Month is it kind of really opened me up to authors that I never would have found any other way. So I'm definitely interested in anything else that Alex North puts out. I do like the way that he writes. And then we have The Thicket. This is something about like a carnival and this girl's brother who was killed at this carnival or something. It just sounds cool. The latest book I just finished, My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. This book, the first few chapters, I was so just like not into it. And then I got into it really hard and I couldn't put it down. And I finished this book in like a week and a half. Super, super good. And I love this cover. There's actually a movie on Prime based on the book, which I have yet to watch, but I do plan on watching it at some point in time. Next up, a book that I plan on reading this year, that is Interview with the Devil by Michael Harbron. This seems really good. This is the first book in a series that he's writing. I've heard great things about this, so I'm going to get into that. Then we have Chasing the Boogeyman by Richard Chismar. I see him pop up on like a lot of other books that I like read, like where he like, little author notes, like this thing from Stephen King, genuinely chilling and something brand new and exciting, compulsive reading and scary by Stephen King. Like this guy has a lot of like little blurbs like that on people's books. And there's a second book that I believe is either it just came out or is coming out called Becoming the Boogeyman, which I do plan on getting after I read this. Right here, we have an absolute classic, Dracula, Bram Stoker. I mean, it's Dracula. What made me want to read Dracula was actually watching The Last Voyage of the Demeter, because that movie was based off part of Dracula. So that made me want to read the book, because I like that movie. This book, if you are at all squeamish, if you are somebody that can't handle very, very sensitive topics, I can't say what. Don't read this book. It is called My Monster by Thomas J. Klein. This is called an extreme horror novel or splatterpunk novel. Very, very, like, this book made my stomach hurt. Like, I could not read more than a few pages at a time. It's very short. It's just a little over 100 pages. But it is gruesome, it is grotesque, you have to like a certain type of, guys, you just have to be a certain type of person to like enjoy these books, but a lot of people do like them. It's extreme horror in book form. Definitely not something that could ever be a movie, because it would really kind of push the boundaries of what could be shown on a screen. Believe me when I tell you that. And then next up here, we have a box set. This is a 3-series box set. There's actually 5 books in the series. Asylum, Sanctum, Catacombs. And then there is Escape from Asylum and the Asylum novellas. And they all kind of go hand in hand with those 3 books in that box set. Alright. Sorry, I'm like trying to get these put back in here. And I don't feel like editing because I don't have time to edit videos. Because I work full time. And my employee just quit tonight. Awesome. that makes me so happy because now everything's a wreck. Real quick before we get into the graphic novels and stuff, I have these official novelizations: Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills, and Halloween Ends. I'm gonna read them because I love Michael Myers. And now let's go ahead and get into the graphic novels. So the two on top, I have Batman: The Killing Joke, the deluxe edition. My wife bought me this. I'm such a Batman fan, and I love graphic novels so much. And then we have Harleen. And I'm not really going to count these. These are just random comics. I'm just not even going to count them. But I do have some just random comics. Give me a second here. God. Everything is a chaos right now. So this is by a guy that I met when I met Jim Ross. This guy, I bought his like comic bundle. I can't remember his name. Oh my god. His name is Sakura. I can't remember if it's like Tom Sakura or Tim Sakura. I think it's Tim Sakura. Did this. This is kind of his character. It's called Apama, the Undiscovered Animal. So I have Volume 1 and Volume 2 of it as well. And this is the Tap Dance Killer. That's his other one that he has. Super, super cool. Like, I actually have in here as well. I thought I had Volume 2. Maybe I do somewhere, but I have... He actually even signed these for me, too, down at the bottom. Yeah, Ted Sakura, that's his name. He even signed them down at the bottom here. I don't know if you guys can see it, but right there, he signed these for me. Super, super nice guy. I have Volume 1, 3, and 4. I thought I had Volume 2, like I said. I might somewhere, but of the Tap Dance Killer, just comics. Very, very, very nice guy. Super awesome to talk to. And he was at that con, so I have those by him. I have Batman, The Three Jokers. This is one that's been on my list for a while. My wife got me this one as well. It's the Joker. He's my favorite villain. A Death in the Family. Classic. Year One. This is Harley Quinn, Volume 1, Hot in the City. I did read that one. I have The Batman Who Laughs. I love, 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 love this character. Batman Dark Victory. And The Long Halloween. And that is all my books. This was 28 minutes long. I apologize. If you guys have any book recommendations, please let me know. If you've read any of these that I haven't read that I've talked about, let me know what you think about them down in the comment section, because I always like hearing what you guys have to say about things. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you guys are brand new to the channel. As always, I'll see you later in another video. Bye-bye.